He has an extensive experience in the development of leads market and sales activities across the markets of Southeast Asia. He's actually a native Singaporean, but has grown to love Jakarta on his many business trips right here. And of course, he's ready right now to help you harness the rapid growth of the digital industry. Please give a warm welcome the Vice President of Southeast Asia comScore, Mr. Jonah Ken Tan.
Hi. Good afternoon. It's a great pleasure to be here. So, measurements in a new era. Today we heard a lot about seismic shift, we heard a lot about consumer is number one, we heard a lot about screen 1, 2, 3. We all know Indonesia is a mobile first nation, but that is not just it. Measurements in a new era is dynamic, is ever changing, it requires constant monitoring. And in the next 10 slides or so, you're going to first see, let me set the stage with audience trends that define the digital landscape in this country. Then we will shine the spotlight into 3 verticals, into transport, into finance, into retail, and take a look at how these verticals dynamically changes and also differ from the overall audience trends in this country. So let's set the stage. This slide shows Indonesia to be the top 5 total digital population, i.e. digital audience market in the world. In fact, at the growth rate of 32%, you are just one notch below India, which was growing at 36%. At this current rate, you could be the top 4, overtaking Brazil very soon. So you have today a total digital population as defined by comScore to be mobile above 16 plus and desktop above 6 plus at 89 million. Out of these 89 million, I'd like you to remember this number. Indonesia is a mobile first nation. So what is your mobile only number? 75% of 89 million today access the internet using a mobile-only device. Remember this number. Now, we should set the stage not just looking at the size of the audience, but also looking at the stickiness, the engagement, the quality, and the proxy here is using total minutes. You can look at that blue line, which is trending, and the blue line is about average minutes per visitor. While your unique visitors has increased year on year by 32%, total minutes has increased by 49%. Year on year growth for minutes per visitor is a very healthy of 13%. How is time spent on the internet today? Right? Each time when I come to this country, I feel the warmth, I feel the intimacy. Happy hours seems to be longer in the country. Back in my country, right? People have their happy hours and they rush back home. Look, social media, entertainment, and games alone take up 80% of a digital individual in Indonesia. This is unprecedented. Out of your 89 million total digital population, almost at about 95% is found on social media today. I'm not going to tell you the obvious, but what I'd like to highlight on this slide is 3 characteristics. First and foremost, 75% is mobile only. Second, 65% is a younger audience, which is below 35 years old. Third, you are a male skewed audience profile today. Remember these numbers. Okay, as opposed to popular belief, desktop is actually important. Maybe not as important in some countries, but is still important in others. In India, the percentage of mobile audience as a percentage of their desktop audience is almost 4x. In Indonesia today is looking at 2.4, 2.5x, and you have countries like France. Some of you are buying campaigns or running campaigns into France. You'll be interested to know. In some countries like France, even Malaysia, our neighbor, their desktop audience is equivalent, if not higher than their mobile audience. So let's shine the spotlight. Spotlight into three industries. First and foremost, travel. Right? We all know ground cruise vertical. This category has a wide reach in this country, and that category consists of your bus and your local trains network. The size of audience is 11 mil, and the reach is looking at 12%. But what is the audience characteristics? Remember earlier on when we look at Indonesia as an overall, we saw three sets of numbers. Let's take a look at how these three sets of numbers differ when we deep dive into each vertical. Age group, we said 65%, at the overall level, 65% is a younger. Here you saw 57%. If you just take 65 as a benchmark, you are missing out on something. Measurements is dynamic, complex, so is audience trends. Gender, early on we saw, it is a male-dominated. Here we see it is a female-dominated. Did we say 75% mobile only? Look, it is 98% for this vertical. Spotlight number 2, the retail industry. 4 subcategories stand out in the retail category: consumer goods, mall, consumer electronics, and computer software. Total digital population in this category is about 60 mil. Let's look at their audience characteristics. 61% is below 35 years old. Gender in this vertical tend to be aligned to the overall trend which you saw earlier, which is male-dominated. However, a very important and very interesting audience trend that you need to decipher and you need to understand from this slide is telling us that desktop actually, in this case, in this vertical, commands 21%. Okay, mobile only, on the other hand, wasn't 75% at the overall level or 98% earlier on when we see in the previous vertical, but it is only 67% in this vertical. Every vertical is different. Measurements is dynamic, complex, so is the audience trends. The last spotlight, finance industry, right? Banking commands an audience size of 12 million unique visitors, has a reach of 12%. Interestingly, is similar to personal finance. Can we suggest, can we draw a parallel and say maybe the banking audience and the personal finance audience is similar or performing similar transactions? At least from an audience characteristics point of view, look, 54% is below 35 years old. It is male dominated, and 87% of them access the internet using a mobile only. My last slide. To sum up what I like to put across today, measurements is complex, audience trends is dynamic, it requires ever constant, relentless monitoring of audience trends. You do not look at the trend this month and say that is what I know and that is what I'll do for the year. You look at the audience trends every month. This is an interesting slide put together by our local partner called Emu One Data. Now, what this slide shows you is the three ride-hailing apps company. Of course, we all know Grab, Uber combined. So let's look at their audience size pre-merger, 1 or 2 months after they merge, and a couple of months later, within a 6 months period, you can see how each Grab versus Gojek, in this case, overtake each other, right? Let's look at Feb 18. Feb 18, before the news came out, I think the news came out in March, and the execution was in April for you guys, a bit later for us, but for us in Singapore. But in Feb 18, Grab had an audience size of 5.2 mil and Gojek at 4.7. What happened during, or what happened after they merged? Grab audience size grew. Well, because they took Uber, right? There's no more Uber app. Majority of Uber audience went over to Grab. And what happened? 6.6 million for Grab and 5 mil for Gojek. Overall market grow, right? Overall market size grow. However, the interesting trend then come 2-3 months later, right? Let the audience stable, let the audience trend stable, let the quality of data stable, and you will see Gojek audience size grew to 7.9 mil, overtaking Grab by a good 2.5 mil. Right? That is a very sizable change in audience size, and we also analyze the demographics, the different segments, and we realize in every demographics it's interesting to see what new demographic segments have been added incrementally, what demographic segments have been compromised from the other party. So as you analyze the audience trends, you see the dynamism, you see the complexity, you see how difficult everyone's job is, but we hope the comScore data will be able to help you guys. So that's all I have for you guys. Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we give it up for Mr. Jonah Ken Tan, sir? Would you like to join me on this stage? I have a token of appreciation on behalf of MMA for you. Thank you very much again for your time and efforts. Thank you. Can we have another round of applause for our speaker, Mr. Jonah Ken Tan, sir?